Welcome back to Public Speaking Success. We are now on to video 6, Delivery Skills. We're also going to look at that final step of review. The sections before this are all about writing things down. Now comes the bit where some of us get a little bit too nervous. A bit of nerves is fine because it gets us fired up, but too much brings us crashing down. As you can see on the Yerke-Dodson graphic, as our arousal or adrenaline rises, so does our performance, but only to a point where we're at optimal performance. After that, too much adrenaline causes a decline in performance, which is called stage fright. We'll talk about handling too much adrenaline in our next program in more detail. Just on this topic, I can tell you that in all my years of coaching people with public speaking anxiety, a large proportion of those people get relief from two things: doing what we're doing in this course, which is planning, and rehearsing. Here's the thing about presenting. Believe it or not, people want you to do well. If you're not really polished but have done the work, people can tell. They'll forgive some errors and will applaud your efforts, but the opposite also applies. They can pick BS a mile off. Being authentic is key. This doesn't mean saying, well, that's just the way I am, because we can all do better than we are. I've been coaching for a long time, and I bet you're saying, I wish you'd speak slower, or I wish you would spend more time on that. We can all do better. So what are the basics? We need to focus on our voice, facial expressions, and movement and gestures. Let's look at voice. Voice has two parts. We call them verbal and non-verbal. Verbal is the words we choose to use, and non-verbal is the tone and the style. When we talk about verbal, or the words we choose to use, there's a few things to remember. Firstly, a good vocabulary is important. You don't want to be scrambling for words mid-pitch. If it's an important presentation, write it out and put it through a grammar checker, such as Grammarly or Microsoft Editor, or get someone to read it. If there's a team presenting, put all the strips together and see how well the different pieces fit. Use simple language. Use a language that is appropriate for the topic and the audience. Being able to explain something simply demonstrates you have a really good understanding of the topic. Nonverbal has two parts, which are style and tone. First, style, which has actually three components, which is pause, pace, and fillers. Try and vary the pace at which you speak. It's okay to speak quickly. You just need to make sure you give the audience time to digest what you've said, which brings us on to the second skill of pauses. These are the small breaks between our sentences which give the audience time to think and you time to think. The last one is fillers. These are the words we use when we should be pausing. The ums, ahs, obviously's, and any other favourite words we use repetitively. We need to aim to get rid of all of these, to get them down to zero whilst you're rehearsing. If you can do that, then when a few fillers creep in your presentation, then it doesn't really matter. So, how can you get rid of them? First is awareness. Sometimes we just don't know we're using them. So, record your presentation on your phone as if you were delivering it live. Identify the fillers and make a deliberate focus to get rid of them. A second technique is to use pauses, as I'll demonstrate in a minute. Lastly, get someone to listen to you present, and every time you use a filler word, they tap on a glass. It's really annoying and has the effect of shocking the presenter into realization. Here's a demonstration with emphasis on pace and pause, which helps in removing those fillers. Normal pace is in the black text, bold text is slowing down, italics is speeding up, and the slashes are the duration of the pauses. I've used the text from a section that I've just delivered to you, so if it sounds familiar, you're going to know why. Try and vary the pace at which you speak. It's okay to speak quickly. You just need to make sure you give the audience time to digest what you've said. Which brings us on to the second skill of pauses. These are the small breaks in our presentation which give the audience time to think and you time to think. The last one is fillers. These are the words we use when we should be pausing. The ums, ahs, obviously, and any other favourite words we use repetitively. This technique of changing the text to bold and italics or an even colour and using forward slashes is a good way to mark up your script to rehearse with. The second nonverbal is tone, which involves pitch, loudness, timbre and resonance. We're going to talk about pitch and loudness because these are the easiest to change. Pitch is how high or low we speak. First, we need to know our conversational pitch. From there, we can raise or lower it. Try recording your conversational style by reading a passage from a book and then adjust your pitch up or down to add a dynamic. For example, here's my conversational tone. I was growing increasingly concerned. I was the board president of a not-for-profit organisation that had been around for a long time. The vast majority of the organisation's funding came from the public sector, which was a real problem. This tone should be my presenting voice, which I then adjust up or down. And using the other non-verbals and verbal elements discussed here, let's see how this sounds with the changes in tone. I was growing increasingly concerned. I was the board president of a not-for-profit organisation that had been around for a long time. The vast majority of the organisation's funding came from the public sector, which was a real problem. Subtle changes can have a big impact. Loudness is literally how loud or how soft we speak. Speaking loudly may be at the beginning of a presentation. Can I have everyone's attention? Or to express excitement. This is a really big opportunity. Or to emphasise a word for dramatic effect. We were heading in the wrong direction, so I said stop. We can also speak softly. For example, it only takes a small amount of time. Listen, just listen to what they have to say. Or, we only just scrape through. Okay, that was voice. Now, let's look at facial expression. There are three parts to our face: our forehead, our eyes, and our mouth. When we use our forehead, we're typically either raising or lowering our eyebrows. Move them up for a positive message or lower them for a serious message. When using eye contact, try and ensure you always have eye contact with someone when you are speaking. This implies that you can't speak unless you have eye contact. So that means no talking to your notes, no talking to the board, over the heads of the audience, or out the window. If you can do this 80 to 85% of the time, then that would be a good natural balance. Once again though, when you're rehearsing, try for 100% adherence to that rule. So how long should it be? Well, according to the research, the average comfortable time to hold eye contact is 3.5 seconds in a conversation. When presenting, hold the eye contact for about 2 seconds for those who are really close to you and longer for those further back. The difference is because we want the audience to feel comfortable. We don't want the audience to feel like we're entering into a staring competition with them. When you hold eye contact with those further back in the room, a clustering effect occurs. Even though you feel like you are looking at just one person, that person and the immediate group around them also feel like you're looking just at them. Eye contact can be one of the harder techniques to get right and is also impacted by cultural norms as well. So keep practicing and get feedback. Your mouth, or more importantly, your lips, are highly expressive. You can smile, you can grimace, snarl, pout, purse, sneer, and compress your lips, all to communicate a different emotion. Some of these you can do whilst you are talking, like smiling. Others might be in response to a statement by an audience member or at the end of a sentence, such as compressing your lips and saying, The last area I want to talk about is gestures and movement. Here are your 3 basic gestures. Counting off on your fingers, we have 3 things to cover off today. First, what happened last week. Second, what we are going to do this week. And third, what we're going to do in the future. Placing things in space, we have an office in the north, central, and southern regions. Dynamics. We've grown from something quite small to something rather big. Movement. 3 basic moves are: move to the screen. You'll notice that I'm not talking to the screen, only to the audience. Balance the room. This gives you the opportunity to balance your eye contact and to make it even across everyone. Stationary. Stand square, feet and shoulders facing the person that you're addressing. One thing to watch out for is wandering. When you move, move with purpose and for a purpose. Don't wander aimlessly. When you start to practice using different delivery techniques, don't worry if they sound clunky. 2 things to note about this. You may think they sound clunky or you look awkward, but most likely no one else does. So get feedback from other people to confirm whether your suspicions are correct or not. With all these techniques, we always rehearse to 150% of where we think we should be, because on the day of our presentation, we'll bring them back to where they need to be. If we rehearse to 100%, then we'll probably perform at 75. The last module is review. People who excel at their craft, sports people, business people, science, etc., spend time finding out what worked so they can do it again. They stop doing those things that didn't work and they start doing those things that are missing. So, take the time to reflect and debrief with colleagues. For major presentations, I'll video the presentation and sit down with the team afterwards and debrief using the start, stop, continue method. In addition, we need to be conscious of the impact of our presentation on our personal brand. Does the audience look at us and say, this person really knows their stuff, I'll remember them, or gee, I think they really let the team down, I don't think I can work with them. It's important to never be complacent. And as I've said before, people appreciate it when you've made an effort, but they can pick BS a mile off. Okay, so that's the 6 modules. Situation, why are you presenting? Content, what's going into your presentation? Structure, how you're going to organize your thoughts? Visuals, what visuals will help your audience the most? Delivery, what behaviors are you going to use when you present? And review, how did you go? What do you need to start, stop, and continue doing? The last video is a demonstration of some of the elements described in this course. It's important to note that from a delivery perspective, it's for demonstration purposes only, to show you the guidelines if you like. You must do them your way and make them your own.